Hey boys and girls, here we are in the Sandia Mountains. Around us there's a bunch of pinon pines. When we look up on the ground, there's a bunch of these dead leaves. These are from oak trees. We're in the middle of a whole bunch of them. It's still a little early for them to green up, so most of them don't have their leaves on yet. We're going to talk about food and bears. So, the bears, they're here. How do we know they're here? Well, we find their evidence. And why are they here? Well, animals are only going to live someplace that they can get food, right? So what is their food? Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Like I said a second ago, there's pinon trees above us. There's oak trees around us. Here's the leaves from those oak trees. Is the same food around all the time for the bears? No. They have to eat whatever's available. So let's start off in the spring, when bears first start coming around here. In the springtime, there's a lot of new little leafy growth. That's a lot of what they eat. Later on in the spring, though, maybe in May, when it starts to get warmer, there's a weird plant called bear corn. Here's an example of some dead bear corn. So bear corn isn't normally brown. When it's fresh, it's yellow. In fact, it almost looks like a corn cob coming out of the ground. There's the corn part of the name, and then we know I just said bears like to eat it. There's the bear part, bear corn. When they are eating the bear corn, they are chewing up and swallowing these little tiny berries. There's not a lot to see. They're tiny. Even tinier, though, are the seeds. Super tiny. They just look like little speckles. So if the bear is really chewing up the soft parts of this, is it going to chew up and grind up, crunch up those seeds? It just swallows them. So where do you think we see those seeds later on? Yeah, we see them in their scat. Now, moving into the summer. They'll still eat the bear corn a little bit in the summer, but then they might start going after some other berries. You ever seen prickly pear cactus? They have those pink berries on them. Cactus fruit. They like to eat those. And guess what we see in their scat after they've been eating those? Not the soft, squishy part of the fruit. That's right, the seeds. We see the seeds of that cactus fruit in there. Moving into the fall, there still might be some cactus fruit around, but then that's when pinon nuts or pinones are available. So the pine tree seeds. Here's a bunch of pinon pine cones. They're real tiny, and the seeds are in there. We talked about that before at the very beginning of one of our other lessons. So the seeds are in the pine cones. They'll eat those seeds because they're abundant. Sometimes, though, and a bear is not very careful about when it's eating, it'll just crunch everything up if it sniffs something good. It just chews up an entire pine cone. Now, when that bear swallows the pine cone bits, these hard little woody parts, is that going to digest? No. It'll show up in their poop, right? Or their scat. How about the pinon seeds? Well, when we eat a sunflower seed, usually we don't eat the whole thing, right? We might break it open and eat the inside. The inside is what we call the meat of the seed. So that's what gets digested. When bears eat the pinon seeds, like I said, they crunch the whole thing up. Their stomach digests the good part inside, but the shell is like wood. So where does that end up? That's right, it ends up in their scat, and then we can see it. Acorns, the seed from oak trees, they do the same thing. They'll eat the whole thing, and then the bits of the shell of the acorn and the little hat on the acorn, those don't always digest. So we'll see bits of those in there as well. So remember, the only things that we can see in the animal's scat, in the bear scat for right now, is the stuff that cannot get digested. So bits of shells, bits of sticks maybe, because sometimes their big tongue pulls up a stick from the ground, and the seeds that don't get chewed up. Now, I said that we see those things in their scat, so what do you think I have that I'm going to show you? Yeah, I'm going to have a bunch of preserved means saved, it's covered, bear scat. This one's cool just because it's so big. See how it's kind of shiny? The reason why it's shiny is from the plasticky stuff that we put over it to preserve it. That way I can touch it and it's not yucky. I can see a bunch of little tiny seeds. Here's another one. Also has the seeds in there. Whole bunch of little tiny ones, and there's even a stick right here. So the bear wasn't too careful. Its big bear tongue pulled up the stick along with the other plant that it was trying to eat. Do you remember the plant that I mentioned grows in the springtime and it has real tiny little seeds? They're like little speckles. It's kind of like this bear corn. That's right, bear corn. This bear was eating bear corn. We know because we see seeds loaded in this scat. We can also learn something else when we find this. Do you remember the season that I said bear corn grows? That's right, it grows in the spring. The bear was eating bear corn, and it was here in the spring. All right. Look at this one. I see a whole bunch of little round seeds. There was a tree I mentioned in one of our first lessons in the introduction that had little bluish gray berries. Inside the berry, like with all berries and fruits, there's a seed. We can see the seeds, like I said. They are juniper seeds. So what was this bear eating? That's right, juniper berries. Now the juniper berries, they're around in the summer and the fall, mostly the fall. So what was the bear eating? The juniper berries. When was it here? Probably in the fall. Here's a couple pieces. They're kind of solid looking. There's a whole bunch of ground up bits of shell in there. Do you remember what kind of bear food I mentioned that has shells? Comes from the pine trees. That's right, the pine nuts or the piñones. The type of seed or nut that comes out of the pine cones. Now, what season did I say that they are available? Mostly in the fall. So, this bear, or bears, they probably aren't from the same bear, was around in the fall and it was eating, that's right, pine nuts. Sometimes bears will eat things that's not really food. What do you think I mean by that? It might smell like food, but it is not food. Did you guess trash? Guess what we have evidence of? That's right, bears eating trash. Here's a piece of bear scat that has bear corn seeds in it, but you see these kind of white things in there? Those are pieces of plastic bag. Just like this. Like we get at the grocery store. Why did it eat it? It probably smelled like food. So, one reason that we always make sure to pack out our trash or to make sure that it's thrown away when we're in the forest. So boys and girls, with the scat, we can learn, if you know what it looks like, what kind of animal it comes from, what it's been eating, as well as when it was here, or when the bear was wherever you went hiking. So lots of things to learn when we find animal scat. And in a minute, we are going to make our own scat. Okay. Hey boys and girls, we're here in the lab. So the first thing that we're going to do is show you some examples of more scat. We saw some bear scat just a minute ago in the forest, but now we have a bunch more animals. So let's go over here and look at it. All right, so the first scat we're going to look at right here is turkey scat. you'll notice that they kind of look different from one another. There's these either curlicues and long ones, or these kind of blobby ones. That tells us that we have male turkeys and female turkeys. Their scat looks different. Turkeys eat mostly bugs and seeds, things that are on the ground, whatever they can find that's down low. Next one is pack rat scat. Pack rats are rodents, just like regular rats and mice. You might have seen mouse poop or rat poop. It looks very much like this. Mouse scat is much smaller. It looks kind of like rice grains, but this is a larger animal. Pack rats are herbivores. They eat seeds and other berries and things like that. So, in the pack rat scat, before I move it, if this pack rat ate a seed that had a hard shell around it, if you remember about the bear scat, the inside will digest, but the shell is likely not to. Next we have rabbit. You might have seen rabbit scat before as well. It's about the size of peas. And rabbits, like pack rats, are herbivores. They'll eat grasses and leaves, things like that. And in the scat, you might be able to see little pieces of grass. So some parts of the grass, like the stalks, just doesn't digest very well. So that's what we're left with. Next, a much bigger herbivore, deer. So, say almost the same size, slightly different color from one to the other. This one's kind of in the middle. When rabbits poop, they basically leave a few little scattered pea-sized poop balls, but the deer has a slightly different shape and they leave a big pile. So again, you might be able to see little bits of grass pieces in there that did not digest. Now, after the herbivores, we're going to move into the omnivores. Coyotes. Coyote scat. This one has fur in it. That's why it has these little kind of points in there. It's like the fur is kind of brought to a point. This one, there's actually a piece of acorn down here. So that looked like it swallowed it whole. And there's some other things. There might be some other fur in there as well. So again, coyotes are omnivores. They eat pretty much whatever they can find that looks good to them. Animals and plants. All right, raccoons. Raccoons are omnivores as well. This raccoon was not from around here. This raccoon lived someplace where there was water. We know that for two reasons. One is that's where we found it. But two, these things in here that look like pieces of bone, it's actually from crayfish. Some people call them crawfish, some people call them crawdads. They look kind of like a little lobster in a way. They live in fresh water. So, bits of the shell, looks like some leg parts, probably part of the abdomen part, the chest or back or something like that. So raccoons, omnivores, eat whatever. So we had herbivores, we had omnivores, we're missing the meat eater, the carnivores. We have some bobcat scat. So bobcats, smaller than mountain lions, they have a little short stubby tail. Again, we have this little pointy part, has some fur in there. I can see some other bits of fur, but this is the shape that bobcat scat will have. I'm going to show you a few things that you need to gather up first. You don't need exactly the same thing, but some similar things. First of all, I want you to get a couple containers like this. You'll also need, if you use mud, need some dirt. So you can go outside someplace with your parent or your adult's permission, scoop up some dirt, and of course to make mud, not only do you need dirt, but you'll need some water as well. All right. Now, if you don't use dirt to make mud, you can use oatmeal. thing with the oatmeal, though, you'll have to break it up a little bit because it makes it into kind of like a clay if you crunch it up and then let it sit in the water. But I'll explain that later. If you have instant oatmeal, that'll work too. If you have clay, of course, clay would be great. Or any kind of dough. If you can make some dough out of flour, that will work fine as well. Now, that's the kind of poopy part of the scat. Remember, some of the scat items that we saw had stuff in it that did not digest. Like maybe grass, especially dead grass. The green grass, that'll probably digest pretty well. But this dead stuff, not so much. So if you use this, you can break it up. Same thing with little leaf bits. You can crunch up the leaf bits and we'll mix those in there. If there happens to be any pine cones around your house, breaking some of these little bits off and putting it in there. And I doubt you're going to have deer fur laying around the house, but you might have a hairbrush. Maybe you have a cat or a dog that you can comb a little bit and get some fur. This is actually deer fur, but like I said, you probably don't have that. So get some cat, dog fur, maybe some hair from your own brush or comb, because sometimes, remember, animals will eat other animals, and that stuff doesn't digest. All right, so here we are. Here is both some real scat and some scat that we made. So let's just go down the line. We'll start off with this one. You know what this one is? It's like rodent scat. This is the pack rat scat. And this is our mud rodent scat. Could be mouse. This one, the real deer scat. And here's our mud deer scat. You can see right here, there's little bits of grass that didn't digest. And over here, rabbit scat that made out of mud and oatmeal. And then here's our real rabbit scat. In fact, it looks very similar. If I put that in there, you almost can't even tell the difference. Over here to this side, remember, these guys were all the herbivores. Over here, we have some omnivores. There's a variety of things. Bobcat scat, there's the fur. And here's our mud bobcat scat. And we use the deer fur right here. You can see it sticking out the end like a tail. These could be a variety of things, but they looked pretty close to the coyote scat. Here's a real piece of coyote scat, the one that had the bit of acorn in there. This one right here has a bit also of acorn and some other things in there as well that just didn't digest. This one I think is mostly made out of mud. There might be some oatmeal in there. This one also is a mixture of mud and oatmeal. This one, it's all oatmeal. Let's start off by looking at the dirt. So we can see there's some clumps in the dirt. And I just used a spoon here to scoop it up. We don't want all these clumps, so try to break them up so it's nice and smooth. All right. You can see there's already little bits of root in there and stuff. You can keep that in there if you want to, or you can take it out. I think it would work as like possibly hairs or just grass that didn't digest. Here's some mud that I had in progress. Hopefully everybody's played in the mud. This mud right here, it's a little too sticky. So I'm going to add some dirt to it. My fingers are all getting clumped up. I'm going to add some dirt because we don't want it too sticky. Because then it just sticks to our hands and it doesn't mold into anything. A little bit more, I think. And you really don't need to put very much water in there. That was my mistake, is then I poured way too much water in to my dirt. So, this is getting better. It's getting like mud ball consistency. Okay, so I'm going to get this one out of the way. I'm going to just put this right there. And if you notice, we have this tray, right? And then I also had this thing right here. You gotta use those things, okay? Unless you're outside. If you're outside, then great. If you're inside, you gotta make sure that you don't get the furniture and stuff covered in mud. So, let's go ahead and start with the easy things first. I think we should make some rabbit scat. So here's a real piece of rabbit scat right there. Easiest one. I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to cut up some little bits of grass. Because remember, rabbits eat grass. Not all the grass digests because sometimes there's just too many fibers in there and it doesn't get digested by the stomach. So those kind of shot everywhere. I'm just going to break off a little piece about this size. I'm going to pick all those little grass pieces up just like this. Like I said, they shot all everywhere. Make my ball. And there we go. Got the little pieces in there. So there's our rabbit scat. And when it dries, it's going to be lighter in color. So there's our rabbit scat. What can we make next? How about some deer scat? It's almost going to be the same. Let me pull the real piece of deer scat over. There's the real deer scat. I'm going to estimate we need, well, maybe not that much. Right here. Oh, look, we lucked out and there's already some plant stuff in there. And they eat a lot of the same stuff. So let's just go ahead and pick up those little bits of grass. I'm also going to use some other things. Here's some other plant. I'm just going to chop those up. Roll the mud around on those. See, they're in there. There's some off screen over here. I'll get those. All right, got some more. And it needs to be this little kind of oval shape. So, smooth it up. Take that off the end. There we go. That's pretty close. There's our deer scat. You can make some and fool the grown-ups in your house saying that a deer walked through. How about an animal that has eaten some meat? So, they're not just going to cut it with a knife and fork, right? They're going to bite right into it. And they're going to get bites of things that they can't digest. Of course, there's bones. But the other stuff is fur, that's right. So, what do you want to do? Pretend that this is maybe a bobcat or a mountain lion. It's all stuck to my muddy fingers. There's the real deer fur. And like I said, you guys probably don't have deer fur. So you can use some dog fur, some cat fur, even some human hair from a brush. But please don't cut any hair off your pet or your little brother or sister or yourself. So we're going to go ahead and just squeeze that in. And remember, let me pull the example over here. Thank you. Here's the real one. See how it has that little point right there? That's where like all the hair kind of got twisted together at the very end. Pull some more hair over. There we go. That's looking pretty good. All right. Here's our bobcat scat right there. We got our herbivores and then our carnivore right there. What vor is missing? That's right, we're missing an omnivore. So omnivores, they're going to have all sorts of seeds. I'm going to pull some seed bits over and then we'll figure out what kind of animal we'll make the scat of. These are bits of, well, this might be able to tell you, that was an acorn. Here are some pinon. Here's a couple juniper berries. That's when they come off the tree. But remember, the animal is going to digest some of that. So this is what I've done here. So there's the full berry. Here's the berry skin and soft part, like the fruit of it. Here's another one. Here are the seeds that I pulled out. So which one of those 3 parts is going to end up in our scat? The whole berry, the juicy part, or the seeds? Most likely the seeds. Every once in a while we'll see some skins of berries. But let's have these seeds ready to go. Now, if we make bear scat, you're going to need a big, giant clump, right? If you have that much mud, great. If not, you can make like a little mini bear scat, or you can make maybe raccoon scat that's been eating this. Here's our coyote scat that had a mixture of some fur and that acorn in there. Here is a bear scat that had nothing but pinon shells, those bits. If you just want to make omnivore scat and you're not sure about what animal it is, that's fine too. So let's go ahead. I'm going to get some more mud, just a tiny bit left here. In fact, what I'll do is add some of this oatmeal that's been sitting there. And before I go on, I'll show you what I did for that. There's the regular oatmeal. Crunched it up like this, broke it up in small bits, added some water, and then we waited for a little bit. So let's go ahead and add some of this to our mud, just so it'll give it some more texture and color. Just squish it together. I might have to add a little bit more dirt because it's getting a little sticky. Yes, it's messy, but that's okay. Alright, so here's our poop shape. Everybody knows what that is. Let's go ahead and add a few things in there. I'm going to take and wipe my fingers off first. I'm going to take some of these pinon and smash them up because the animal will have crunched them up too. So smashing the shell. Smashing, oh, look at this. See that little hole right there? There's a bug that probably went in and ate it. Smash that one. Smash that one. Bunch of little shell bits. And we can say that it was going after some juniper too. Let's just take those shell bits, smush them in there. And like I did before, just kind of roll the poop over it. Let's roll the poop over. The juniper berries, there they are, stuck in there. And let's break this little acorn bit. Now, I know not everybody has oak trees around their house. Not everybody has pinon trees. So what are some other things that you can use that have shells that you might have at home? Could you use sunflower seeds? Possibly. Could you use peanuts if they have shells? Yep, you can do that too. Anything that would not digest, all right, can work in there. So there is our omnivore scat right there. Comparing it to our coyote one right there. Not exactly the same. Here, let's do this. Let's twist it a little bit so we can get some of those cracks. There we go. That's better. Give it some texture right there. I hope you had fun making scat. I did. We have to remember, though, the scat in the ecosystems. Where does it come from? Of course, the animals. But what are the animals eating to make that scat? That's right. They're eating either plants or other animals. There's words that we use, though, that mean the same thing as plants and animals when we talk about ecosystems. What are they? We learned it a little while ago. Plants, because they make their own food, are called producers. They make their own food. The animals, well, they have to eat. They consume their food. They are called, yes, that's right, consumers. Consumers eat consumers. Consumers can also eat producers. The producers, however, where are they getting their energy from? The sun, that's right. So all energy for life on Earth starts from where?
The sun.